Welcome back to our xpDynamics tag tutorial series. Today we will teach you how to create dynamic simulations on object surfaces and compare it to Mograph effectors. Let's dive in. In last tutorial we talked about how to simulate the splines, and now in this tutorial we want to talk about simulation and affecting the surfaces of the objects with the xpDynamic tags and create very beautiful and simple simulations. Before I jump to the xpDynamic tags, I would like to start a simple comparison between Mograph in Cinema 4D and xpTag. Let's start with just a simple cube here, and can be any shape you like. Just hold the Alt and click on Mograph, and we'll add the cloner to your cube here, and you can, with these yellow handles, just a little bit give space, and when you select the cloner to the objects, you can add, for example, 6 and 6, and we have a little bit more cubes. And now we want a kind of interaction between the cubes, create some interaction, some movement, and we can use here the effectors. So we have a bunch of cool effectors here, like plane effectors, push apart, random effectors, shaders, and let's try now shader effectors. And automatically shader effectors will affect, if you go to parameters, the scale. We'll remove the scale and back everything to normal. We want to the position of the, for example, 300, the position of all the cubes be affected. And now we have the 300 for Y, but as you can see that all of the cubes going to the top, and we want to have more control, and for this shader effector is great. If you go to the shading and go on shader and choose noise, and you can play with the noise now. For example, you can play with the noise parameters, with the contrast, and you can create some cool simulations of moving the objects. Or you just come here on animation speed, put 1, and when you play you see the object is moving. We didn't put any forces or any dynamics, but you can see we can make some cool mechanical movement between the objects. And if you want to have some connection between them, you can also add like a tracer. And if you go to the Mograph and choose tracer, and in tracer you can drag and drop, because nothing happening, because in the trace link you should drag and drop the cloner here, and we don't need the shader. And you see here we have the trace objects which is created for us, and you can here come trace connect all objects, or come to the connect elements. Now we want to try the same with the simulation with the xpDynamic tag, and we will see that how much more freedom we can have if we are using the xpDynamic tag. For this, we'll just jump and create here a simple plane, and I will scale it. If you click T on the keyboard, and then you have the scale option and E to move it. So, and NG, NA, ND. Then now we can see the number of segments on our plane. I wanted to have better imagination and compare both of these together, because here we have one cube, and with Mograph we make it separated cubes, but here we have only one object, and we want from this simple plane create a bunch of cubes here. Of course is like not really separated, but look like there are a bunch of cubes, they are separated. So for this we can use the mesh tools that I will also show you, that is great to add to your workflow. And for this we will go, just if we go to the Insidium, and we have mesh tools here, mesh tools, and if you click here, you can, here you have a bunch of tools that will help you to work on your mesh. I will add here mesh tool subdivider. You will add subdivide here. This is clear. You just need to drag and put the plane here as a child of subdivider, and automatically it will be created if you before and after. And here the interesting part is you can add more subdivisions here, but the more you add will be the more heavy your scene, and you must be also very careful with adding subdivision here. We'll stay with one for now and just go to the shader. And here is interesting part that you can also add noise shader here, and you can see if you go to the noise parameters, you can play with the contrast, with the playing with the brightness, and you can also animate this and create very cool simulations. But for now we will stay here to just random shape to create. I want to have something like this, and we back to subdivision. You can add to it, or you can keep it less. For now I'm happy with this. And now we wanted a little bit space between this. Then you can come again here and use mPolyscale. We just come and use mPolyscale, and we will put the subdivider children of polyscale, and you have control procedurally on your workflow, and this, which is very great. And if you go on polyscale, we have amount, and you can add to it, and you can define how much space do you want to have between. And we want a kind of creating, like for example 3 person, I think is enough. We just want to show that they are separated objects. And also now when you see here we have thickness here, you can also add thickness to this plane because it's very 2D and we want to make it a 3D. For this you go to the mshell gen. This is also great tools to create thickness. You put also all of what we have already created as the children of shell gen, and here you have thickness, and you can put 10 or for example 50 or 100 for now, just to have better view of simulations. I will not go all details of the mesh tool here, but for now you can play around with it, and you can play with the options here that you have. It's not very complicated. All you need is just play with it and put children of each other to create cool surfaces. And now we have our object created, but all of what we have here, we have only one object still. And if I deactivate, and you see we have still one plane, and we added subdivider, then we added polyscale, and then we add thickness to it. But the interesting is that we just now can back to the 2D version, I mean the plane, and come here and start our simulation, and we go extension and create xpDynamic tag and add to it. And when we add and we play here, you see here on the surface, on the corners, he created for us particles. And we can go to the tag here and distribution. We can say, for example, vertex and meet. And if you click here and play, he will create in the middle of object also a new particle. And this is very great because the particles are controlling the simulation of the object. And now we have created enough the particles on surface. And to better control the particles, here you can come on XP tag and add emitter. And in this add emitter, you can go display and change the object color, change the display. For example, we want to see it as a circle, and you can click and will be a little bit more visible for us. And the good news is when we activate all of other mesh tools that we have applied will be also still working together, all together, and there's no problem in our simulation, which is very great. So now we wanted to add some. We have our xpDynamic tag, and now we need, if you play, nothing is happening. There is no movement because there is no forces here. There is no dynamic in our scene. So we go and to Insidium and xparticles and dynamics, and we choose xpFlowField. And xpFlowField, if we look at xpFlowField, is the default on a random, and the field is in direction, and if you play, nothing is happening. but also the flow field is created here, but our object is here. So also we must be careful to put it on the surface that we have, and we can scale it down. We can size, for example, 600, 600, 600, or you can click T and scale it. So let's scale it that covers all of our object surface. And now again, if you play, nothing is happening, and just because the field is on direction, but we want to put it on velocity. And as you can see, all of the objects is one solid rigid object, and this is the reason we cannot see any separation between the parts, because in XP or xpDynamic tag rigidity is 100. So how we can make it feel that like all of these objects are separated, and we should only make the rigidity 0. And if you put the rigidity 0, here is the explosion happen, but this is not what we wanted. So we go again to the constraint and dynamic tag and structure. We want to keep the structure, and we will activate, and it's much better now. Look like it's all attached together and objects are interacting. And to make it still more connected, we just go here and we add another dynamic, and we go to xpDynamics, and we will add constraint and connection on birth. We will activate and on distance. So this is now great simulation of objects that we created, and we have now a lot of more freedom comparing to Mograph that at the beginning I showed you. You can see how much more you can do here with the cubes and simple objects that we have here. With only xpFlowField dynamic, you can play hours and create cool simulations. We have only random here. You can add another options here. For example, you can add shader here, and in shader you can add noise here, and you will see you have created another simulation. Or you can add gradient here, and in gradient you can add, instead of 2D, for example, you can go star, and as you can see, you can create another beautiful simulation with just one click. And this is what I wanted to show, that how much freedom you have comparing with just using effectors and Mograph. And here, for example, you can add turbulences, and we'll create it for you another results. And if you come here on the make it 0 turbulences, and we just go to the type and change it from star to 2D, we'll have another. You can play around and see what kind of results you will have. And if you, for example, play with it for until now, the best, this is radio, and create another simulation with us. And let's create another one, and you can play with the gradient, and you can in preview see also how will be the gradient affected the power of xpFlowField will be changed directions. And you can also invert it, and you see the powers from outside come to the center and to the inside. If we put it like a box and look like all the results, and you can come here and invert it, will be all of this you have. You can play with it, and this was only shader. Let's back to turbulence, and the turbulence also will give you another results. And now we want to have more control in xpFlowField. For example, if we just go to the random, and we can add now field on it. And if you can add field and we play again, you will see only in the center where the field is will be affected. And you can animate, for example, just from right to left, you can animate the size, you can animate the position of field, and whatever is outside the field will receive no influence of xpFlowField. And if we slowly move this, and now you can see with the field, you have more control on creating simulations, and you can create more and more beautiful, and you can animate this and scale it and play with it. And all of this was now what I show you was only one xpFlowField. And now let's deactivate the xpFlowField and just go add another motion power for our simulation. We just go in Cydium, xparticle, dynamics, and modifiers, motion, and we will select xpGravity. And when we play, all of the object will be affected because the gravity will affect all of the particles, and all of particles will affect the all of object. And but we want to make it a little bit cooler and have more control. We want look like separated cubes are falling down. For this we can go to gravity and use, and in gravity we just keep it as a default as it is, and we can use the simple field. And as you can see, the field is created here. Also, you should know the field must be the place of the object it is to affect it. So we can a little bit make it bigger and scale it. And now when we play, and you can see how beautifully created for us. Let's make this to 200. And let's play again. Create a very beautiful, like piece of cake, destroying our object and creating a very beautiful simulations. And you can animate it and create very beautiful simulations, or we can play with it and move it. You can do a lot. You can do from center, and you can also change your field from the sphere, for example, to a linear or to the box, and you can create another form of falling apart and gravity simulation. For example, let's deactivate this and let's only have the box field, and let's move it, and look like we are creating a bunch of boxes are moving, and from the center you can play around with it with the field with only one force and gravity, and you can use your imagination and create very beautiful simulation with this. And if we also deactivate the gravity, the last thing that we can use is interactive with other objects. It means we just come here, create a sphere, and bring the sphere here and just add to radius to it, for example 300, and we add segment, for example 30, and this is our object. And when we move it, there is no interaction with our surface because we don't have any collision on this. So we just need to add the XP collider and just go right click, extension, and XP collider. And now when we move it, you can create another beautiful simulations that only with just sphere with the collider and animate it. And now let's see, you can also play on the collider. You can change the normals from outside to the inside and will be attached to your box. And if you move it, you can move the surface. This can be a street or anything in your imagination that you can create a very simple, easy and beautiful with just few clicks particle simulations and surface simulations. And now you can easily add subdivision surface here to our surface and create totally new surface and change all of cubes to a new shape. And if we activate the gravity here and play again, you can see we have new objects and we created totally new kind of shapes easily. Or we can now deactivate gravity and add xpFlowField. Play with it and have a lot of fun. Now we want to play the same rules and create cool simulations with hexagon surfaces. Let's jump to it. We just select from the splines here the end side. Go filter first, we don't need to see work plane. And here we will hold the Alt and click on Mograph. And the mode we will change from grid to honeycomb. And now we have a simple beautiful shape of honeycomb here. The form we can change it from the square to circle. It will be more beautiful visually. You can try all of the options here and play with it. We'll stay with the default that we have here. And we need now to add some extrude to make a 3D object. So we come here and select the extrude. We drag it here and now we have everything extruded. With NB we can see the segments. And now we need to add our xpDynamics to it. But before, we should connect all of the Mograph surfaces together, because if we add now, go to extension and to xpDynamics and we play it, you see it's getting totally out of control because the cloner must be connected to as a one object. So we delete it and we back to the default, and we can, for connecting, you can select here the connect and connect all of the cloner together, or you can to Insidium and go to utilities and xpJoin. They are both same, create the same results. You can choose between connect or xpJoin. And here now we can go to the extension and add the xpDynamic. And as you can see, he created for us on the corner and points the particle. And we can change it to the vertex mid and play again. And the center of the objects also we have particles created. In properties we go to the add emitter to have control on the shape. We change it to circle to have better visual for us in preview. Now we can add forces as before we did for at the beginning of the tutorial. We can go again to Insidium and, for example, we can go dynamic and add xpFlowField and scale it T, and the power we scale it that cover all of object, and we play here. Our forces is random and the field direction which is velocity, and all of the object will be affected because there's no, because the rigidity is 100, and we just come here and change it to 0. And like before, just come here, constraint, and add constraint tag to it, that they will be more connected to each other. And they keep the shape, and now we want it to be connected, but this is also even a cool simulation because turn all of the objects to hexagon type of particles, as you can see, and they are moving and separately. And you can in FlowField go to the field and add some field, for example spherical, and we, like before, we can move it and play with it, and when we play we can destroy our hexagon surface one by one, and we have a lot of control and create very cool and beautiful simulations. And now if you wanna hold the shape connected to as a one surface interacted with our flow field power, we need to add another dynamic which is constrained, and in connection, because we want all of these surfaces be connected to each other, we go to the connect at birth and distance, and we connect both of them. We activate it, and you see now how beautifully our surface created, and you have a lot of control to now add forces on it based on your story or your imagination or your motion graphic. You can create different type of simulations, and very beautifully and simply you have a lot of control now. For example, now we was xpFlowField as a force. Now we can add, for example, our sphere back radius. For example, we make it 500, a little bit segment. And now after creating our sphere, we go extension and add xp collider. And now when we play, we have a kind of interaction between our surface, and here we can play normal inside outside again, and we'll create totally different. So for this you can come, and here let's stay to the outside, make it invisible, and with this simple technique that you can create a lot of beautiful motion works. Now we use the same technique to squeeze an apple and turn it to another object. So we come here and just write an apple, and this first one or search we select, double click, and here created for us a small apple, and selected coordination, we make it like 20 20 20, and NG and B you can see is black because the material we see on preview, and you can go option and disable the material. So we have the apple here, and now we just need to remesh it, and just come select and remesh and drag it here. And when remesh is done, just click C on the keyboard and Control A, right click, connect object and delete. Now we have only one apple. Now we just go an extension, add the xDynamics extension on it. In properties options, we go and select rigidity to 0. When we play, nothing is here happening, but on the segments created for us particles, we just add particle, and here we can select vertex mid, and when we play again, and here we see that the middle of the object also created. Now the last part is just add the forces, and here we need dynamics, so we go to xparticles, dynamics, and xpFlowField, and let's move it to the center. Now when we play, nothing happened, but here objects, we just field change in xpFlowField to velocity. Now explosion happened, so we go to again to xpDynamic tag, constrain and activate it. So when we play here, now its structure stay and it's not exploded, but we can still make it better and just go here and add another dynamic, xp constraint, and at birth and at distance connection, and keep the object shape better for us. And now we're back to xpFlowField, random, we deactivate, we will use another source of power, surface normal. And for this we need an object, so we come here and select torus, put it at the center. You can play with the radius, and we select xpFlowField again, an object, we drag our torus here, and now we don't need to see the torus itself. Just in xpFlowField we can make the cell size 20. We can see better the direction of the force and powers, and the velocity can be 50. And now let's play. And our apple start be squeezed or rotten. And we can play with the other options. For example, 20 will be more slowly, or you can make it like 80, will be faster and stronger. Also, you can deactivate the fall off here, and when you play it, will be the whole of object affected by this field. And another cool things that you can do is in xpFlowField add some field, for example spherical, and move this to the top and use the field to control the influence of the field and the normal force. And you can play with it and create some cool simulations. And finally, I will show you how to melt almost any object with this simple technique. In Cinema 4D, we go to here and click on Asset Browser, and in Garments we select the t-shirt, double click, and he will automatically create for us a t-shirt here, and automatically will create for us a t-shirt here. But as we can see here, is the number of vertex is very high and will make our scene a little bit heavy for xpparticles. And for this we just come here, first click C, and we turn all object to only one object, and then here Shift C, polygon reduction, double click and drag it here. And if you select in objects, you can the vertex count here is important. You can make it, for example, 4000, because we just want to test and we don't want to make our scene be heavy. And now again, we on keyboard we click C, and here we have t-shirt, and now we just need to make it a little bit organize the segments, and we just come select and remesh it and just drag it here, and now is perfect. We don't have a lot of number of polygons or segments, and now we can use this as a source. Just come remesh again, C on keyboard, and now we have only t-shirt. We just right click here, extension, and add xpDynamic tag, and if we play, it created for us for every segment one particle, and you can change from vertex to vertex mid, and will be for every polygon one particle. Now it's ready to add our forces. We'll go Insidium, xparticle, modifiers, motion, and xpgravity, and suddenly will affect our object, and will be gravity will take it down. But now we just need a surface. We go here and plane, add a plane to the surface, and a little bit move it that have a space between the object and surface, but they don't have any interaction, because we should turn the object, the plane to the, we need another add a collider. We just right click, extension, Insidium, and add xp collider, and now if we play, perfect. But we don't want all of the objects suddenly fell down. We want a kind of part of it, and as you can see here, the whole of the object will be affected. And so because the rigidity here on our tag is 100, you make it 0 and let's play and create for us another simulation. Now we need just to tell the object from where start the gravity affect our whole object. For this, we need to use vertex map. Here we select the t-shirt remesh and go on segments and points. We select segments or surface. We select the points. Just go on selection and rectangle. You can select only a few segments from here. Is never mind, because we want it from here start, and then go on selection and set vertex map value to 100. Okay, and all of the surface is red, and here will be yellow, but we want growing happening, and just come here and select use fields, and in freeze you select the grow, and when you play, I activated the gravity. Let's deactivate the gravity now, and when you play, you see it's very quick. You make effect strength, for example 50, and will be a little bit slowly, or 20. Now this is as you can see, you can easily art direct your project. And from here we want gravity affect the object and the falling down happens. So now we go select the gravity and click here, and still is not what we want because we didn't give any field. On xpGravity and field we just drag here our vertex map. Now happens what we really want. Not all of it, the gravity will be effect based on the vertex map, and this is great. You have a lot of control, you can really art direct how you want. But still is not looking like a huge mesh. It's just like a 2D form that's falling down. So we just come here, alt double click. We don't need to see. We just need to see the particles. You can come here and tag, select and add emitter. And if you play, now you can see all of the particles falling down. And we can turn these particles to mesh. Just go to Insidium and xpParticle and to generators, VDB measure, and we drag in object. In general, here we drag the xp emitter to turn it to object. Point radius is huge here, you can make it 5 or 1, and now you can play. And it's like mercury, or it can be any metal, you can put any material on it. And now you can play with it. For example, you can put 2 to add more segment to it, the voxel size to 1. I think 1.5, maybe. We don't want to be very heavy, it's only test. And you should be very careful here, adding the voxel size. Let's make it more heavy for your computer. And for today, I think we are testing, I think the voxel size 1.5 is good, and you can go on filter and add more filter to it and play with it. For example, make it still more smooth. And as you can see, with few clicks, we created such a beautiful simulation. Can be mercury, can be snow, can be water. You can use your imagination and create what you like. Thank you for your time, and I hope you find this tutorial helpful. Please don't forget to subscribe, and hope to see you on the next tutorial. Happy creating!